Okay, good morning, everyone. Looks like I'm seeing a quorum at this point. Maybe a few others will join as well, but I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome to our October meeting of our Medical Marijuana Testing Advisory Council. And to start out, I'm going to go through a quick roll call. So if I call your name, please unmute and let us know that you're here. So I'm going to start with Max Lung.
Here.
Thanks, Max. Murray Stein.
Here.
Thank you. Timothy Nolan. Timothy Nolan. No, I don't see Timothy. Okay. Connor Griffith. Thank you. Steve Cottrell.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Matt Lascala. Matt Lascala. I don't see Matt. Okay. Joe Demena.
Here.
Thanks, Joe. Jay Neary.
Send it a little quieter.
Jay Neary. Jay, I think I seen you on.
Present.
Thank you. Elizabeth Brady. Elizabeth Brady? No, I don't see Elizabeth. Zhuang Zhang. Or Zhonghua Zhang, sorry. Zhonghua Zhang, are you on? I don't think I see him. Okay, let's see him. Victor Hugo Ramos Sanchez.
Here. Good morning.
Thank you. Ty Garber. Ty Garber. I don't see Ty. Nate Allen. I think I see Nate. Nate.
I'm here.
Thank you. And then we have our vacant positions, which are 3. We have still vacant the registered dispensary agent and the lab scientist and the licensed healthcare provider. So again, if you know any folks that might be interested in applying for those positions and have the right qualifications, we'd be happy to hear from them. And I think, Kim, last time, did we have an applicant for the lab scientist? Or?
We do, and that one's still being reviewed.
Okay, the lab scientist is still being reviewed then. But if you have any of the others, please let us know and we'd be happy to talk with them. Okay, I've got Kim in the room with me today, and I think Megan will hopefully join us at some point, Megan Whitney. So I'm going to go ahead and get started now that we've confirmed our quorum. The number, that should be 9, right? So we got exactly 9 folks, which makes a quorum. So we are okay to get started. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick review of the council's charge, as always. Just to remind everyone, ARS 36-2821C, the advisory council shall annually review the marijuana testing programs under this chapter and chapter 28.2 of this title, and on or before the second Monday in January of each year, the committee shall submit to the President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Health and Human Services Committee chairpersons of the Senate and the House of Representatives, and the Department of Health Services, a report that does not disclose any identifying information, and that includes at least the following. Firstly, an assessment as to whether an analyte should be removed from the required statutory testing panel. Secondly, the number of statements of deficiencies relating to testing that were issued to each nonprofit medical marijuana dispensary, third-party independent lab, marijuana establishment, and marijuana testing facility in the preceding year. It should also include the remediation efforts made to address each deficiency and the resolution of each statement of deficiency. The information may not disclose any identifying information, but shall delineate the information by entity. And third, Finally, any other recommendations on improving testing programs that the committee would like to submit? So with that, we have our first item on the agenda, which is regarding terpenes. And I believe Murray Stein is going to talk about this. I'll turn it over to you, Murray.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Victor. So I'll make this fairly brief. Since the last meeting a month ago, after we reviewed and talked about terpenes, and I discussed that, they're pretty much found in all plants, some insects. They're common in cannabis. There's a dozen or more that are typically appear. There are a number of companies that reference terpenes in terms of their products. There's a clear understanding that there's a synergy between terpenes, cannabis or cannabinoids and the human body. We talked a bit about its value to the consumer and the potential health benefits. And basically simply stated that the reality is the terpenes are being tested for in some regions. And what are the reasons for that? Of course, a health consideration is always a factor. Next slide, please. So you'll recall last week I spoke to you when I mentioned that these were a set of states that are currently make some reference to terpenes. In the month that I've had since I saw you, I've basically gone through and looked at the statutory and regulatory documentation for each of these states, and therefore have learned quite a bit about their specific circumstances. The upshot is that not really a lot of people or a lot of states worry a whole lot about terpene testing, and those that do are more casual than we might be, say, with cannabinoids. I think that's an indication that we're still trying to understand how terpenes work and really the consequence of their synergy with cannabinoids. And lastly, is there a safety consideration with that regard? What I found in looking at each of these states is that they basically will ask for a set of terpenes or a terpene test to be provided, and really don't dictate much beyond that. They simply say a terpene panel is an appropriate delivery or deliverable for testing. So trying to get to the root of it and understand more, what I was able to find is that some states, very few relatively, but some states will go a bit further. They'll make reference to a document called the AHP. It's an herbal reference document. I think it's herbal pharmacopoeia is what it's referred to, 50-page document. That's the only reference I know I've found in several different states that actually refer to, when you look at terpenes, this is the go-to document that says what terpenes you'll find in cannabis and, the likely presence in terms of when you find them in terms of percentage. But really little in terms of anything in terms of toxicity. And then a review of the literature, scientific and research literature, doesn't indicate a whole lot of support for a general discussion of terpenes in terms of their toxicity. In essence, there really isn't any data out there for us to hang our hat on. Next slide, please. So this is a reference to the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia, and I encourage you to go online. You can drop $40 on a hard copy of this book if you like, but it is kind of the go-to document that several states do refer to. And they do, as I said, state which of those terpenes are most common and their percentages typically when they're found. Next slide, please. So, as I said on terpene toxicity, there's no established standards. There really isn't enough research to define those standards, as near as I can tell. There are some clear concerns for long-term ingestion, especially when inhaled. That's been reflected in the literature that I've read. And at states that are specific or require terpene testing, just say they want a terpene panel and they don't say anything more. Consequently, from what I've been able to tell from the work I've done, is that really the best approach in terms of terpenes at this juncture is we know they're important. We know that consumers anticipate them, that they think it's part of the overall experience. And I think generally speaking, that's believed by most people in our industry, that terpenes do affect the experience of cannabis. But because we have no real data to work with, the best thing we can do is be mindful of our industry's pain points. That is to say, the cost of testing. and also to understand what people are doing in terms of promoting terpenes. Hence, the best approach would be, in my view, set no toxicity limits until we better understand those. Simply require testing if that particular company that's pursuing the use of terpenes makes a label claim. As a result of that, unless there's any questions, I do have a motion which is fairly generic and very simple in terms of what I'm going to suggest. And that is really to recommend that the state require testing for select terpenes in all products that promote their inclusion. So with that said, I'd like to invite any additional discussion or comments about terpenes, and then I will go ahead and make a formal motion. Okay, I'm going to consider that the opportunity for me to make a formal motion. I move that we
Hang on,
recommend
Murray.
to-
Murray,
Yes,
I
sir.
do have a question. I'm so sorry. I
No
couldn't
worries.
get off mute fast enough. So just to be specific, if on the label the producer says, just limonene, for example, then the test required would only have to prove that that particular terpene is present, as opposed to like some sort of full panel. Is that what you're suggesting?
No, not particularly. I think that
Okay.
sort of details get into the weeds where our friends at the Department of Health Services and their, the folks that worry about the rules are going to be far better to figure out how to parse the language.
Okay.
I suspect, and I don't know this, but I suspect if you're going to do a terpene panel, it's probably just as cheap or as expensive to run a single panel on one analyte, say limonene, versus all of them.
Sure.
So that's really where somebody with lab experience should speak up. I suspect it would be just a terpene panel, whatever the generic definition should be. The labs will know this because they do run terpene panels and they know what they see. So if in the rules they get more particular about you must provide at least the data associated with that terpene, then I can understand that. But I would say it's a little too detailed for me to make a judgment call. I'll leave that to the state.
I agree. This is Steve. I think that we ought to have 15 to 20 different analytes that they're looking at. The standards come with all of those terpenes in them already. So it's just a number, we just got to figure out what the major 20 or major 15 are. I know that about 100% of the labs right now in Arizona have a significant panel that they're already testing for. So I think it's a matter of coming together on, do we want 10, 20, 100? Because all of those are available in a standard. So and to your point, Murray, it doesn't cost more money to run one than another. It might take a few seconds longer. That's
right.
Murray, this is
Yes,
just wanted to comment on that. So I think if there's critical ones, we should target those. By all means, we should add terpenes for all the reasons you've said. When we have qualifying requirements like QCs for these analytes, the more analytes you add to the panel, the more complex the testing becomes. So it doesn't really affect the CRM, the standard that, like Steve mentioned. But in order for us to put out reportable data, really focusing on just the ones that are critical, as opposed to, we would hate to have to rerun a batch that fails because, one of the terpenes we never see didn't have qualifying ions on our lab controls. Right. So
Right.
There's reasons not to just make it extensive, but I think having maybe the 10 or 12 most common, I think there's one with 13 in them that's very, very standard. And we can provide a list of those, or any of the labs. We could pool all of the terps we individually look for and put it forward. But to everyone's point, it's something we all do. We have to Q3 it because it's not for compliance purposes, but your motion essentially would recommend that it becomes for compliance purposes. And I think we can get behind that. So just a couple thoughts.
Good. A couple comments about this. The idea is not to place additional financial burden on companies unnecessarily. Terpenes, exist in the flower. They sometimes survive into concentrates. If there's one thing I did notice from the various states' reviews of their rules, Some of them do go to the point of being very particular about the terpenes must either be cannabis derived, they must be manufactured by, if they're included or added to the product, they must be manufactured to whatever specifications or meet certain guidelines. So there are constraints in terms of the use of non-cannabinoid terpenes in terms of their addition to products. But again, that's a more detailed specifics that we can pass information on to the state from states that do this and let them adjust or write the rules accordingly. But there are some particulars like that we don't want to forget about. In any case, terpenes don't survive into many products. We make a lot of topical products, edible products, runs the gamut. And we know which products terpenes can survive in, but not in everything. So it would be egregious to ask a manufacturer who has no terpenes in their product and is not promoting them to have to spend the extra $50 on testing. Consequently, the reason for it's associated with the products that are part of a label claim or for which the marketing is claiming their inclusion. There really is only about a dozen of the key terpenes that seem to appear regularly in cannabis, and those are represented by the American Pharmacopoeia documentation. I'll happily send along a copy of that one page from the document to show you that table. It's also present in the presentation you have that describes those. Were there any questions or comments before
I
we
have a
formalize the
comment,
motion?
Murray. This is Max.
Mhm.
I also want to add that, so the motion, just to clarify, is basically to put terpene, as a, item in compliant testing, but we are not specifying what we are testing. I think there are a benefit from the product quality point of view, just to get more information. So, for example, the list that you provide, from the like the list of terpene, the top two, I just put out a special issue in neurotoxicology a couple of days ago, and there's a paper that actually talk about the top two terpene on the list. It actually have some, in a experimental model, it actually have some therapeutic effects for neurodegeneration. So terpene is not, it is not just a safety concern, but also it's a product quality concern. Let's say this is medical cannabis. People are using it, say, like for specific therapeutic or symptom management purposes. It's good to know what they're using, right? Just from a general product quality point of view. I just want to add.
Yep, agreed. Again, I'll stress that the specific terpenes there, I couldn't find any reference to terpenes that are being tested in any of the statutory stuff I reviewed. All I could ever get to was a basic statement of a terpene panel or references to the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia. So unless there's other questions or suggestions, I would be happy to go ahead and make the motion to, and I quote, recommend that the state require testing for select terpenes in all products that promote their inclusion, and leaving the actual details of how that gets implemented to our friends at the state who, are better at this. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Yep. Good job, Joe. I third it.
Okay. Do we have
Back
any
to you,
more,
Victor.
do we have any more discussion before we take a vote on the motion? Okay, I think we're going to take a vote here. So I think the easiest way to vote will be if everyone can use that button to raise your hand, right? And then Fabiola hopefully can see it and we can count that way. So all those in favor of the motion that Murray just proposed and that was seconded also, raise their hand, please. And we're just going to count here. And we're going to count the folks in the room, make sure we get everyone. So I see Murray, Steve, Joe, Nate, Victor Hugo, Jane Erie. Oh no, yes. Let's see who else we got. I think that's.
Come on, Nate. Important stuff, Nate.
Nate just knows how much validation work is going to go into each analyte.
Nate,
My hand's up already.
Oh, yeah, yes, sorry. I missed
There it is. There it is.
It's
Job
it
security.
was the first hand up, Steve.
I
Oh, I
got you.
didn't see it.
So we
So
have,
it's,
we've got, and all those not in favor, please raise your hand. So,
Let me lower their hands.
yeah.
okay, we'll lower your hands first, and then all those not in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Don't see any not in favor, of the motion. And so, go ahead, Kevin. I think it was 8 people, and then lastly, any folks abstain from voting? I think we haven't heard from Tim Nolan, so I don't know what your vote is. Tim, are you abstaining? Okay, well, we can say 8 out of 9 people voted for the motion, so the motion passes. Thank you, Murray.
Mhm.
Okay. So I believe our next item on the agenda is MCT oil in inhalables. And is this you again, Murray, or is this Joe Demena?
I think Murray's first on the agenda.
Okay,
I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Murray, or if that was.
You know, only that I took what Joe said from the last meeting to heart, and I started doing a bit of reading about MCT oil and so forth, and it's how it's used as a cutting agent largely in terms of vape pens. Went back and reviewed the history of the incident we had some years ago with vitamin E acetate and the consequences of that in the lungs. There's apparently quite a bit of debate out there about MCT and its use. Some states out and out ban it, some don't. But it definitely, in the research or the basic reading I did, I think Joe's onto something in terms of really evaluating this for validation, certainly testing. I have a worry. I think all of us have a worry in our market and our weird Arizona way of doing things that we have a lot of bad players, and sometimes those bad players we have no control because they're outside of our market, and every now and then we got one that's in our market, and these bad players affect health. And if we have any obligation, it's to look after the safety of our consumers. So I'm all in support of continuing the discussion about NCT oil, because I think Joe's right. There is, if states have out and out banned it because of what they know, then I think it's something that we need to at least study. That was my only comment about that.
okay, thank you, Murray. Any questions for Murray before we turn it over to Joe Demena? Okay, go ahead, Joe. It's all yours.
Thanks, gang. And thank you, Murray. I really appreciate you sort of setting the table like that. I couldn't have done it in a better way. And so appreciate that. I also went back and did a little bit more research, and I know that the gang from DHS sent some of this around, but I just wanted to highlight some items. I don't want to waste too much time on this issue because we have talked about it quite a bit. But what I found is exactly what Murray said. There's a bit of a back and forth in terms of the actual harm. There certainly is some harm, but in terms of just the clarity of that, it's not necessarily it's not for sure. So what I definitely think erring on the side of caution on these types of issues is the best way to go. Especially in terms of the purpose of this council. You know, we make recommendations to DHS and to the legislature and the governor, and whether or not they enact or act on those recommendations is certainly up to them. So one of the things that I thought was especially troubling, though, was that, you know, there are, as Murray mentioned, several states that are already banning it, which includes Ohio, Michigan, Oregon, Washington. And this Weed Map story mentions that other states are likely to follow. I would suggest that we be one of those states that follows. There's also another troubling portion in the MLive study that I shared with everybody where it talks about MCT oil being unknowingly mixed with terpenes. And so that gives me great pause because terpenes are a good thing, generally speaking, when it comes to these products. And so even having good producers unknowingly give out MCT oil, I think is something that's especially troubling. So I don't know if there's any other discussion you all would like to have about it, but I'm happy to just kind of throw out my my motion and go from there.
I'd like to add to that, exogenous lipid pneumonia is the big thing that happens from MCT oil because you're inhaling or you're vaporizing a fat, a plant fat, and our bodies are not designed to process that in our lungs. And so, exogenous lipoid pneumonia, which is what it's the main cause of this. This is a common thing that is seen in cannabis across the country. And this is what is, I'm going to say, put the flag up in many cases. So I think it's appropriate. It's a safety thing.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve, Murray, did you have your hand?
I'm just agreeing with everything that's been said.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
Joe,
Okay.
this is Nate. I just wanted to add that, at least in a label disclosure, it would be nice to see what people are putting in their bodies, right? So from a label claim and a disclosure statement, I think at the very least, that's what we should recommend. But also even measuring to test to see if it is present, that could be helpful too. So I wonder if there's maybe two ways to sort of address it. One is from a tested requirement standpoint, and whether or not that goes probably is secondary to the first, which is anybody using it as a cutting agent. It should be required. If somebody wants to knowingly inhale an oil, it's their prerogative, right? But how would you know if you didn't disclose it? So.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with that, Nate. And I guess the one thing that I would say is in terms of label claims, I think there's sort of an assumption that the individual purchasing it understands what it is that they're looking at. If I, pull out a vape pen and I see, glycerol triclopyrrolate listed on there, I'm going to think, okay, well, that's a weird word, but it's being sold in a retail store that's regulated by the state, and these people have the license, so it must be okay. And so I agree with you to an extent on that one. And that's all I wanted to say to that.
I just wanted to draw a parallel with what we do in terms of edibles. It's not uncommon for us to make certain products where we use off-the-shelf flavoring from many different suppliers here in the U.S. The flavorings are typically used in confectionery and things like that. So they're well-established products. But we can't just say, oh, that blueberry gummy just doesn't pop enough. We need to put more flavor in it because there actually is limits that the manufacturers will tell you. Don't go beyond this amount of material per volume, or you may have issues, and those issues can be health related. As much as we love to see terpenes and we recognize their value, and there's research showing their value, too much of it is a good thing is a bad thing. As I said before, water is good for you until you drink too much, and then it's toxic. And the same thing is certainly true of terpenes and things like that, and these other compounds. So the consumer puts an enormous amount of trust in us as manufacturers to make sure that what we make is truly safe for our consumers. But not everybody does their homework and does their diligence, says, oh, can I put more of this flavoring in this? Am I going to reach a limit? Because we come from an industry that's sort of bloomed. We don't necessarily across the board have all the best practices. And honestly, sometimes we have to cover for ourselves by testing to verify to make sure the consumer does know what they're getting, because that is one of our first obligations.
Well said, Murray. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
This is Max. I actually have a question. So terpene, from what I had heard so far, it sounded like, some of the manufacturers are already testing terpene, right? But how about like for this particular motion, like what are we proposing to test, when it comes to additives? Like, do we have an idea, like how, if it's a compliant test, what would go with on the list? Like, Joe, do you have any insight on this?
Yeah, let me just go ahead and give you, so a dry run on the motion would be A motion would be to prohibit MCT oils in vape cannabis products and to require testing of those final products for glycerol tricrypronate, glycerol tricryprolate, glycerol tricuprate, and glycerol trilaurate. And I am so sorry, I'm just not the guy to say all those 100% correctly. But these are the analytes that have been identified by the Michigan Cannabis Regulatory Agency. And it seems to be, at least from what I'm seeing, this encapsulates the best practices in terms of targeting those specific analytes that are the MCT oils. So that would be what I would be suggesting.
So you're saying just vape, Joe?
Yes,
Not
sir.
all concentrates that are potentially inhaled.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And Joe, what agency again? Like, what is the reference for this?
This is the Michigan Cannabis Regulatory Agency.
There's lots of organizations that have written papers on this. WebMD has some really disturbing facts that are frightening to read. There's a bunch of medical journals that have done white papers and published documents on exogenous lipoid pneumonia with MCT oil of vaporizing in the lungs. It's not good at all.
And let me just ask this question to Joe and Murray. I don't know if you'll have the answer, but if we're testing for these particular compounds, what limits would we have limits where it would be acceptable? Or if it's detected at all during testing, that means that product cannot be sold. What do you have any more information on that?
So the Michigan, the Cannabis Regulatory Agency has an LOQ and PPM listed here, and they are outright banning it. So I would recommend taking a look at what they're doing. But in terms of all that, scientific stuff, I would leave that to Murray and Nate and the guys who are swimming in this daily.
So the LOQ is 0?
LOQ of 0.
Yeah.
Okay.
No use whatsoever in vaporized products only. It's used everywhere else in food products. It's wonderful. It's magical. But in vaporization, ELP, exogenous lipoid pneumonia, is a real danger.
And Steve, do we know if, or others, do we know if our labs out there that we license actually have the capacity to test for this easily, or is it going to be a lot of burden on them?
I believe it's easy. I mean, Nate would be the one to talk to about it since he's real time every day. But if it's outright banned, I believe that the 99.99% of the players in this industry are just going to take it that it's outright banned, and they're not going to play with that. That 1% or that 0.1% person will be found out pretty quickly, because it's apparent, very apparent, when you're vaporizing this product. The vapor that comes out versus cannabis vapor is totally different. It's a totally different animal. You have a gigantic cloud that is through the vaporization. Cannabis doesn't show a gigantic vaporization cloud when it's concentrated and pure. When you put those additives in there, that's when you see the large cloud that comes out that people may have seen around people doing vapes and things, nicotine vapes. For the most part, the industry is on board with not using this, from what I have found. But to have a ban on it just solidifies the safety factor of not using it. There were some brands back in the day that utilized it wholeheartely, and they have since been put out of business because of this product being in their product. They refused to get rid of it. Thus, the industry refused to keep them in business.
This is Max again. I also, think that we probably should collect more information on this, particularly if this motion is based on the standard from Michigan. I think we should at least reach out to our colleagues at Michigan, and get more information. Like what level are they, setting? What are they testing? What have they seen so far? I think you should get more information before we vote on.
Did Michigan specify vapes only as well?
The purpose of this technical bulletin is to inform the marijuana industry that Cannabis Regulatory Agency will add MCT oil as a target analyte for marijuana products intended for inhalation.
So that's all inhaled products then. Do we want to change your scope?
I don't think so, honestly, based on what I've seen so far. I mean, and I would look to the industry to maybe set me straight, but are people putting MCT oil in, you know, in shatter and you know, rosin and other, you know, non-cartridge inhalables? I don't know if that's really occurring.
I've never seen it. It really wouldn't make a shattered product. So that's not part of the process. It's mainly in vapes because they want to thin out the concentrated oil. This is, we're you know, technology today has advanced extremely far since the days of, I'm going to use two companies that are no longer here, Open and Dreamstein. One of those two brands used MCT oil. The other did not. And so, but the other did use another carrier, if you will. And both are no longer, you know, they're not, it's not needed. We have figured out through technology how to vaporize cannabis oil correctly and efficiently without using carriers to thin out the oil. And those carriers consequently ended up being harmful to human bodies. So.
Thanks, Steve. It's hilarious. I actually have used both of those brands, and it's a bit outrageous to learn after the fact that that's the case. So it's just part of the plight of being the customer and the patient. And Max, what I would say is I'm not against tabling this for another session, although I don't know when the next time we're meeting will be. I would really like to have this wrapped up this year if possible, just so it's not dragging into 2025. But again, I'm not, like, if DHS would like to reach out to Michigan and some of these other states to gather more information and learn more, I'm all about that. Absolutely.
This is Megan with the department. Just clarity again regarding the recommendations. So absolutely at any time, the council can make recommendations that will be included in our annual report. That can happen during any meeting. If the recommendation is for the department to conduct rulemaking in order to do something that, you know, we've talked about that several meetings now, that is an entire process. And it's one that we haven't had to undergo a lot, the regular rulemaking process in marijuana over the last few years, because we've had super exempt rulemaking for various reasons legislatively. We still have that exempt rulemaking on the adult use side right now for the next about year, but it is not in place for medical marijuana right now. And of course, I believe, well, one thing, this council is specifically for medical marijuana, but also we have in the past all expressed interest in making sure that those regulations mirror each other, both adult use and the medical marijuana side. So we just want to make sure everyone is completely clear that the council making a recommendation, there are a lot more processes involved for the department to actually be able to make rules, and including getting approvals from various people. And then also there's an entire process and it does take some time. So again, I just like to be clear on that so that a recommendation can start something, but we're still a long way from that being implemented.
It's putting it on the record, Megan, and it's trying to roll it forward. This is the only way possible to do it. None of us are going to go stand at the legislation on a daily basis to try and pass these things, which, you know, we can get to the lawmakers one way this way, but this gets to the lawmakers through the back door, and it's a lot easier, I'd say.
Absolutely, completely understand that. I just know there's been some questions in the past few meetings. And again, we've been fortunate in marijuana the past few years to have that exempt rulemaking where we've kind of been able to quickly address issues as they've come up. And so it's just important for everyone to understand that now we have that regular process that we have to follow, like all of our other license types. And it is a little more time consuming, and there's definitely more things in place just that we have to go through. So we just like to be clear on that, that's all.
That makes
Well,
sense.
this industry is lucky to have a bunch of people like yourselves in the room that know you are going to force it down the legislation's throat that these things need to be changed. We all look for, we all thank you for that, and we applaud you for that hard work, because we know you're going to be doing this tirelessly, Megan. So thank you.
I actually have a follow-up question, Megan. So does it still follow the, sorry, I'm learning as well. So with that, does it still have to follow the schedule of the Senate and the House, which there's only, no, oh, okay, that helps, okay.
So what it depends,
Okay.
okay? So the council can make different kinds of recommendations. The report that we put out has to be submitted to many people, including the legislature, in January. So if the council would like to, they can make recommendations about potential legislative changes. Those would have to go through the legislature. So that's where the Senate and the House process goes. However, they can also make recommendations that the department do a rulemaking to change certain things in a rule.
Right.
That does not have to go through the House and the Senate, but there is an entire other process we have to follow with that. And sometimes it just depends on what it is. Sometimes in the past, some of the rule changes that we've made have been prompted by legislation, such as testing in the first place, right? There was no testing until there was a bill in 2019 that directed the department to establish the Medical Marijuana Testing Advisory Council and to implement a testing program. That particular bill did give us super exempt rulemaking in order to implement that for a certain period of time. And so we were able to do several rulemakings and update those rules and continue to make them better. It's just that time frame has passed on the medical marijuana side, but we still do have it on the adult use side.
Well, I feel it's more important on the adult use market anyway. These topics that we're discussing in today's meeting, terpenes are definitely important for the masses, so they understand the plant better, and as well as safety from things like the pneumonias and things like that can be caused from MCT. So this is perfect to be able to do this in adult use. I think many of us would prefer adult use over or medical for these rules to be changed in anyway.
Again, the council can make recommendations. Just keep in mind that this advisory council is actually established for Medical Marijuana Testing Advisory Council. So when you look at the chart, it's actually directly related to the medical marijuana program.
Is there a adult use committee that we don't know about, Megan?
There is not. And again, there's nothing saying that you guys can't, you can make a recommendation, all of those things. I just like to make sure we're all on the same page and a level playing field here. We understand.
That's good. Okay, so quick question. We will be having one more meeting this year, right? At least?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then I guess
Yep.
with that in
Yep.
mind, yeah, Nate,
I'm
shoot.
sorry to cut you off. I don't delay it. I think we need to get the ball rolling on it regardless. I will tell you the labs just need a little time to figure out how to see it. What to calibrate against. Obviously the chemistry itself, chemical code, CAS number helps, but how it ionizes, all of that, we need a little time, but I think you should still make the motion and we should pursue it, because if it's a safety risk to the extent that we're talking, it's got to be gone.
Mhm.
I also want to make a comment. This is general information. I think some of the member, on the call already know, but if he is involved, first of all, it sounded like this topic, we need to gather some information, right? Also, it is not like, and also I want to say that, the role of ASU faculty and actually all Arizona public school, we have strict guidance that we are providing advisory, comment, but we do not advocate. So basically, when we're talking about new bill and all, my understanding is we respond directly to the committee, right? We come from the back end. What I want to bring up is that, we have the election coming up, right? And there's only one section for new idea to be introduced to the staffer of the legislature, which is the beginning of next year, every year. Okay, so if we want to propose something, like to the legislature, by this time, we pretty much have to have everything written up, which there isn't. Okay, so my suggestion is, since we have this platform, in the council, we should continue our conversation and keep gathering information. And again, this is the advice, to prepare for the session next year, and, I think, think about the time as well, like the member on the call who are interested in pushing this, right? I think there are benefits of taking more time to gather the information. Maybe, if you guys want to adjust the legislature, I think the cycle for the 2026 is a better one. Again, that's my advice.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is for you guys to reach out to the staff of the legislature. So, yeah.
I agree. And Max, I definitely want to adhere to the hesitations and whatnot. But I don't necessarily agree with the timeline that you're suggesting. And I also want to just point out that just the fact that we're talking about this, regulators, policymakers, association, industry leaders are taking notes. So, even if a motion doesn't materialize during 2024, it could potentially be part of some legislation that's introduced in 2025. So there's just a lot of sort of moving pieces. But what I would like to do is, Max, you've asked for us to move it back. I know that Nate and others would like to move forward. I'm okay with making this motion in the next meeting so that everyone has a little bit more of a chance to get smarter on the issue again. But I just would say that, I'm like 100% there. It's not going to really change where I'm coming from on this. It would be more to make it that other council members are less concerned and more agreeable to doing to saying yes to that motion. So just putting that out there.
All right, you had your hand raised, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I don't think there's any question among any of us that MCT oil as an inhalant is a bad idea. There's more than enough evidence out there to suggest that there's a reason to be suspicious. Two, it's used as a cutting agent, not so much as a carrier oil. Cutting agents are used to extend the amount of material you've got. It's in many respects an attempt to monetize the material you have by spreading it out. Not solely the reason for doing that, but it's one of the reasons. There's enough evidence from other states to indicate that there's clearly a health consideration here. Waiting to execute on something where there's no real demand from the field. I don't hear anybody saying, I want MCT oil for my vapes. Suggests to me that this is pretty much a done deal. If we know it's not healthy, we're pretty sure it's not. We just don't know the specifics of, the testing for it, what's the toxicity limit, the outright ban, and so on. So I know there's some open questions, but the reality is, I think we deal with this now. Just say, but unless it's something that everybody was using or was going to be controversial, the only people that are going to care about this are those people that are trying to extend the amount of their product. So I argue for, let's put the motion to suggest to the state they ban it and to otherwise establish details on the analytes and what values they use for limit of quantification and so forth.
Max, if it's okay with you, I certainly don't expect you to be a yes vote, but I think the majority here is speaking here. So if it's okay with everybody, I want to go ahead and make the motion. I make the motion to prohibit MCT oils in vape cannabis products and to require testing of those final products for glycerol tricapronate, glycerol tricropylate, glycerol tricaprate, and glycerol trilaurate.
I second.
Okay, Steve second. Do we have that captured, Fabiola? Okay, so we have that motion captured. I will do the same again, although, we'll actually see if there's any discussion before we take a final vote. Any other council members have any other questions or comments I'd like to make before the final vote?
Just real quick, sorry. Are there any other preparations that we want to include? I know Joe already addressed it. tinctures, is that common? Obviously, it's dilutive if it's used to cut, so.
It's not inhaled, so their appearance and tinctures are not an issue. They don't make it to the lungs.
Agreed.
So just inhaled, but vape specifically. Okay.
Okay, any final questions before we vote on the motion?
And just to clarify, this is basically to test it, right? Are we gonna set the action limit also? Like, I guess that would be from the department, correct?
This is just to, the council is recommending that the department look at, prohibiting these, so this would just be the start of that process.
Okay, all right, yeah, I think you get behind that.
Okay, I think we're ready to take a vote. We'll do the same as before. All those in favor of the motion just proposed by Joe Demena, please raise your hand.
If I got you, Connor, and I, you don't have to hand your book. Hand it the whole time.
We've got Steve, Murray, Joe, Nate, Victor, Jay, Tim Nolan. So I think we have everyone, I believe. So it's a unanimous vote that this should, motion is approved. So thank you, everyone. Motion approved.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're ready for our next item on the agenda, which is the review of the Medical Marijuana Testing Advisory Council report. I believe Fabiola is going to take us through some updated numbers and comparison to last year so that we can review that.
So from last meeting, you guys asked how this was all looking compared to last year. So I went ahead and I updated the report to include the testing violations from January 1st to October 1st. Previously,
Can everyone see the chart? I'm just checking, make sure that it's sharing properly.
right? So
Okay.
for the lab side, I compared it to the reports included in the lab report last year and what they reported last month. So this is how it's comparing for the lab side. And then, right, so it's the related reports, the actual number of violations, and the independent third-party laboratories and testing facilities.
So it was significantly higher last year. We could see that.
Yes, and I also would like to add, I don't know if you guys remember, but on the lab side, their numbers were reporting from November 1st of 2022 into 2023. And then for this year, they did it January 1st of 2024. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So we're not comparing exact.
So that's that. For the facility side, it's pretty similar. So at this, we're not done with the year. We still have 2 more months, but we're basically at the same number of SODs. We, at this time, have 123 testing related citations. At the end of last year, we had 147. And then this year, we do have more enforcements than we did last year, or at least enforcements that had a testing related citation associated with it. So those are the numbers. Any questions related to this? And then, is this the draft? Yeah. Those numbers are now reflected in the, paragraph, sorry.
I had one quick question. How do these numbers compare it to the industry in general, external of Arizona? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Do you mean like out of all of the citations we issue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I mean external of the cannabis industry. How do these compare?
So in other states.
Yeah.
We don't have that data just because every state has its own rule scheme and we wouldn't have a comparison for that.
I can tell you, Murray, in New Mexico, where I have 15 stores, our testing is, it's nothing like this. This is far more aggressive. The fact that you're tracking things, I know there are people that are violating the rules over there, and there's still nothing being done. So some places are, strong, and some places are weak. This place, I think, is pretty good here. So.
Thanks, Steve. Go Arizona. That's what I heard.
Keep it going, Meg.
That's all I have.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Brandon, everybody knows Brandon. How does the lab's violation data compare to lab violation data outside of the cannabis industry? Does that make sense?
In comparison to like environmental testing and water
Things like
and
that.
air and soil and things like that, because those are things that are under your purview.
I think.
This is Mary Graham, the office chief. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I would say now, you notice the number of findings kind of came down from previous years. I think it's kind of settling into what we would typically see findings wise for the environmental program. Now they're not going to be exact. There are different requirements. Like we don't have near the amount of like inventory requirements, for example, in the environmental industry. So that's just a whole section of the rules that we wouldn't review at an environmental lab. But as far as the actual like testing and all that, I would say it's getting close to being similar to the environmental program.
That's great.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Any other questions from anyone else on the council?
When will the report be sent out that goes to the legislation?
So we'll have to, so at our next meeting, we'll vote on the final report with the caveat that we'll be able to revise the numbers with the final numbers from December of 2024. And then it gets sent to the legislature in January.
Yeah, second Monday in January.
Great.
Okay, if there are no more questions on the report, then I think we're ready to wrap up. Just a reminder that we have, again, if you were on at the start, we have 3 vacant positions at the minute. One for a registered dispensary agent, one for a lab scientist, and one for a licensed healthcare provider. And these are ones that we would like to try to fill. So if you know anyone who's interested, as Kim mentioned earlier, we have someone who's applied for the lab scientist position on the council, and we're currently reviewing their details and qualifications. So hopefully that will work out there. Be nice to get us to the point where we have a full membership on our council, so that we don't have to struggle anytime with not having enough for a quorum. We came close today and ended up, I think, with 10 folks on, so that was good, so that we can keep moving forward. Any updates on our next meeting date, Fabiola? Are we think November? Probably sometime
Possibly early December.
early December, possibly. Okay, late November, early December. So we'll provide that information as soon as we have it ready, so that you can get it on your calendars. And again, if you have any items for the next, you'd like to have on the next agenda, please forward them to us here. And any other information you'd like to share with the committee, please forward that as well, and we can distribute that for you. So I think we are ready to call for a motion to adjourn if there are no more questions or comments. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor, please say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay. Okay, motion approved. We will adjourn. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Appreciate your input. Thanks again to all of the staff here and folks at ADHS and those who were able to join us in the room today. And thank you again for joining us online. We appreciate your input. We will talk to you soon. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks.